Hello everyone, welcome to Full Moon Movies. There are blockbuster films that rely on visual effects to create spectacle, and then there are films that use visual effects to create an entirely believable world. Pacific Rim belongs firmly into the later category. More than a decade after its release, it remains one of the finest examples of how CGI can be used not to simplify or to impress audiences, but to convince them that an impossible world could actually exist. Directed by Guillermo del Toro, Pacific Rim tells the story of humanity's struggle against gigantic monsters known as Kaiju that emerge from an interdimensional breach beneath the Pacific Ocean. To combat them, humanity creates equally gigantic machines called Jaegers, piloted by pairs of humans linked through neural connection known as drift. On the surface, the premise sounds wonderfully ridiculous, like giant robots fighting giant monsters. Now, yet, what makes the Pacific Rim remarkable is that the very first scene, audiences completely accept this reality. Now, this is where Guillermo del Toro's greatest achievement lies. Many films use CGI merely as a technical tool. Del Toro uses CGI as a storytelling tool. Every visual effect, every set design, every lighting decision contributes to the making of this world feel lived in and believable. The audience never questions whether Jaggers could exist because the movie carefully constructs a world where they naturally belong. And one of the reasons the world feels so authentic is the extraordinary attention to detail. Jaggers are not presented as magical machines. They feel really heavy. Every movement suggests thousands of tons of metal shifting through the environment. Buildings collapse with weight, water reacts realistically, metal bends and strains under pressure. Now, this sense of physicality is something many modern CGI heavy films still struggle to achieve. When Gypsy Danger punches a kaiju, the impact feels enormous because Del Toro understands the scale. He constantly reminds audiences of the size of these machines through visual references such as helicopters, buildings, bridges, ships, and human beings. The result is a level of immersion that remains impressively even today. Now, Del Toro has spoken about drawing inspiration from Francisco Goya and his famous painting, The Colossus. Now, looking at the film through that lens, the influence becomes clearer. The towering Jaegers often resemble gigantic mythological figures standing against impossible odds, much like Goya's painting, which dominates the landscape. This artistic inspiration elevates Pacific Rim beyond a simple action movie. The film frequently frames Jaegers as monumental figures emerging from darkness, rain, smoke, and fire. Now, these images feels less like scenes from a blockbuster and more like moving paintings. The visual style is further enhanced by Del Toro's collaboration with Industrial Light and Magic, whose work on the film remains among the best CGI achievements of the 21st century. Now, what is particularly impressive is how the visual effects team integrates lighting into the digital environments. Neon signs, city lights, rain-soaked streets, ocean reflections, emergency sirens, and industrial lighting constantly interact with Jaggers and Kaiju. Now, the lighting gives the CGI texture a sense of realism, which is what I really like about the movie. Many blockbuster films suffer from overly clean digital imagery. Pacific Rim embraces weather, darkness, atmosphere, and environmental effects. Rain pours across giant metal surfaces. Ocean waves crash against moving machines. Sparks fly from damaged armor. Smoke fills the battlefield. Now, these elements help to convince the audience that the world really exists beyond the screen. The famous Hong Kong battle remains one of the greatest visual effects sequences ever created. Every frame is packed with detail. Neon advertisements reflect off wet surfaces. Kaiju's blood glows through the darkness. Massive robots move through narrow city streets. Yet, despite the complexity, the action remains easy to follow. Now, that clarity is a testament of Del Toro's direction. Many modern action films overwhelm audiences with rapid cuts and chaotic editing. Pacific Rim understands this, and that skill requires some level of patience. Del Toro allows viewers to appreciate the size and weight of every movement. The cinematography also deserves tremendous praise. Rather than hiding the effects through a shaky cameras, like what they do now, Del Toro often embraces wide compositions that showcase the Jaegers and Kaiju in full view. Now, this confidence allows the audience to fully appreciate the artistry of the visual effects. At the center of the story is Raleigh Beckett, played by Charlie Hunnam, and Mako Mori, portrayed by Rinko Kikuchi. Now, while some critics felt the characters were simpler than those found in Del Toro's other films, they effectively serve the story's purpose. The emotional core of the film lies in humanity's collective effort to survive rather than individual character complexity. That said, Mako Mori becomes one of the film's most memorable characters. Her personal journey, connection to the kaiju attacks, and the determination to become a Jaeger pilot provides much of the film's emotional weight. The supporting cast, including Idris Elba and Stacker Pentecost, delivers some of the movie's most iconic moments. Elba's famous "Today we are cancelling the apocalypse" speech remains one of the greatest rallying cries in the modern science fiction cinema. The action sequences are spectacular, but what makes them memorable is their sense of purpose. Every battle feels like a struggle for survival. The Jaegers are damaged, pilots are injured, resources are limited. Victory is never guaranteed. Now, this creates tension that many modern blockbusters really lack. Upon release, Pacific Rim received generally positive reviews from critics and audiences. While its North American box office performance was modest compared to some expectations, the film became a major success internationally, particularly in Asia. It ultimately earned over 400 million worldwide against a production budget of approximately 190 million. More importantly, it found a passionate audience. Over time, Pacific Rim has become something of a cult favorite among science fiction fans, visual effects enthusiasts, and lovers of giant monster cinema. Part of this enduring appeal comes from the fact that it understands exactly what it wants to be. It celebrates giant robots, it celebrates giant monsters, it celebrates imagination, and yet it does so with sincerity rather than irony. In an era where many blockbusters constantly joke about their own absurdity, Pacific Rim fully embraces its premise. Del Toro believes in a world he created, and that belief becomes infectious. More than a decade later, the visual effects still hold up remarkably well. In fact, many viewers would argue that Pacific Rim remains superior to numerous modern blockbusters with much larger budgets. Now, that is because the great visual effects are not simply about technology, they are about artistry. Perhaps most importantly, the Pacific Rim is one of the most rare modern blockbusters where the visual effects have aged exceptionally well. Now, the combination of practical production design, realistic lighting, and carefully crafted CGI means the movie continued to look impressive more than a decade later, and the 4K presentation simply showcases that craftsmanship at its highest quality. For home cinema enthusiasts, Pacific Rim is often considered a demonstration disc. It is a film that shows off the capabilities of a 4K television projection and HDR display and the surround systems all at once. If there is a modern science fiction film that deserves a place in a 4K collection, Pacific Rim is certainly one of them. In conclusion, more than 10 years later, Pacific Rim still stands as a benchmark for blockbuster filmmaking and a reminder that when artistry and technology work together, movie magic can feel really real. Now, this movie is a must watch.